get straight into it. So, what's your name?
Jonathan Carnival.
Can you just tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Question is where to start. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had a pretty good childhood. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I had a very complicated one. There were moments in time where I caught myself alone. I developed many abandonment issues and rejection issues, I guess you would say, throughout my years as a child. I was born without, not born without, but my father passed away when I was about 1 or 2. He had pancreas cancer. So having a single mother, I didn't see her much. She was always working, which I understood. She needed to put food on the table, and thanks to the group of females that raised me, like example, my aunt, my grandma, if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be the humble person I sort of am today. Growing up in that faction where I told you my mother was always working, it made it difficult because I didn't have a father either. So not having either roles in my life constantly throughout the day, just seeing my mom for a couple hours and that was it. Living alone means I had to grow up alone. Um, didn't have much support growing up. I had that typical story where I was the fat kid, I was a loser. This is where it was during a time where the generation wasn't as, what's the word I'm looking for? Wasn't as acceptable as today is, right? Today, it's okay to be sensitive. It's okay to be into anime. Let's just say that, right? Or a man wearing the color pink. I have a huge neon pink sweater on. It's because I love it, as you could tell. My style is very out there. So that all derives from my childhood, right? What led me to today and being the person that I am and always putting others in front, always making sure that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. That's why, despite those several issues that I had as a child, like the abandonment, et cetera, rejection, I think it's what helped me mold me into the person I am today. I mean, I do have other mental issues that I developed as I got older, but as you would see in the book that I made, it's very depressing. Very depressing. It makes like Edgar Allan Poe cry. 'Cause if that's the case, then let me tell you. But yeah, so my childhood, I would say, is like a seesaw. One day it was great, and one day it was just terrible. One day I was crying by myself. One day I was eating Burger King and I was extremely happy. It always depends.
What were your dreams as a child?
Believe it or not, nothing. I just wanted to somehow make money and just sit at home and do nothing at all and just take it as I went. It was hard to have dreams as a child because I was forever daydreaming of just having a normal life, having a father, watching kids play in the park with their dads, and me just standing there being all by myself, right? Like I mentioned before, I was a bit obese as a kid. Not a bit. I was like nutty professor, kind of really big kind of kid. So that stopped me from having dreams, right? The bullying stopped me from having dreams. Um, I repeated fourth grade as a kid because of bullying, didn't want to go to school. I purposely caused myself to get in trouble because instead of me dreaming to become better, I just thought about what can I do for people to leave me alone and worry about right now. I never had the chance to dream, pretty much. The only thing I was able to do was be in my own four walls and just scribble scrabble on my book, write about different things. And maybe that was my form of dreaming, right? Just writing things down, drawing the most weirdest looking things that I couldn't even draw. It was weird. I have a very weird imagination. But now, though, like I said, it all derives back. It molded me into becoming. I learned how to play guitar by myself, right? Taught myself how to play piano. I know how to draw now, right? I taught myself how to draw. I also have to give thanks to my mom because it was her who always pushed me. Even though she wasn't there as much as she wanted to be, she did put in the effort when it was time. Very, very, very tough love. My mother's Latin American, so if any Latin people out there, you know. But now I have dreams. So what's important now is I do have them, and I have the ability to reach for them this time.
Can you tell me about your relationship with your dad, or how it felt not having that relationship?
You know, those are one of those very like kind of like difficult questions to answer, I guess. It's like that when you ask somebody, you know, there's people that go and say, "Oh, I hate my dad. I wish I didn't have one," right? Then I can come in and say, "Well, I don't have one." So look at where we're at, right? We're at a standstill. My opinion is, when I truly try to tell people, is that not having a father, he could have been the worst person in the world, right? He could have just neglected me. He could have just, I could have father issues, like daddy issues, as people like to call it. To be honest with you, frankly, and not trying to say this in any kind of a rude way, because I respect him, even though I don't know him, I'm glad that I didn't have one in my life, because my mom did that job, right? I can now give thanks and owe my life to my mother, because that's actually who was calling. That was my mom. So like not having one gives me a dream now to become one, right? It gives me that opportunity to treat my child the way that I wasn't able to be treated, right? Those moments where dreamt of going to the park, right? Dreamt of having my first talk with my dad.
Yeah.
So the fact of not having one helped me create one in my own head, where I can now say, might not have had a dad, but now I know how to be one, because the things I never had will be the things I will do for my whether daughter or son. So I mean,
How did growing up? How would you describe the feeling of just, if at any times you wondered about, like, you know, where's your dad or anything of that nature? How did that feel when you would contemplate that?
I mean, there was a time where when I was young, I finally asked my mom, I was like, you know, where's dad? Is that my dad? Because my mom had a boyfriend at the time. Obviously, he was this tall German, blonde hair, and I'm, you know, pretty brown. So I put two and two together and knew he wasn't my father. So in that scenario, I asked her, I was like, Mom, you know, where's dad? And she gave me the typical answer, oh, he's away. I'm not dumb. You know, I mean, you could feed me cookies and milk and I'll be happy, but I'm not dumb, right? So learning that when she finally told me he passed away many years ago, it hurt, right? Now I know that it's not my fault, right? At one point I thought it was me, right? I thought I had some issue with him and he disappeared. So what I decided to do was, since I had this feeling of like this empty void when it comes to my father, because I would always attack people whenever they mentioned my father, right? Back in the day, you know, making dad jokes. That was back in the day, right? Today you do that, you get in like the worst of trouble. But bullying back in the old days were different, right? But I would become very aggressive and defensive because I didn't have one, because I didn't know how to feel about it, because I never had a chance to feel about it. Now, as a grown man looking back, it did affect me a lot, right? Instead of a man teaching me how to shave, a female taught me how to shave. When it came to arguments, right? How to defend yourself. It sure wasn't a man. It was my mom, right? I know I mentioned my mom a lot because she was my father.
So how was your relationship with your mom?
I wish she was here, because then you would understand. Because she is something else. She is literally the best thing in the world and the best actress in the world, because her drama is beyond anything in this world. But my mom, being my caretaker, being my guardian, being the person that's helped me out the most, you know, never turned her back on me. Since I never had a father, I can't say it, but I'm pretty sure my mom, just being who she is, outbeats having a dad any day. If somebody asked me if my father can come back, it would mean losing my mom. No, it's the reality
How
of
did
it.
that relationship with your mom make you feel?
Resulting in like with the whole situation with like my dad and stuff like that, or just how she makes me feel.
Just how-
I'm not gonna sit here and get emotional. There is actually like a passage in that book I wrote. You're gonna see that there's like a page just for me and her that I made, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be alive. To be honest with you, whatever. I'll just talk about it. There was a time, a couple years ago, I was very lost. It was a very dark time. I was going through some things, and let's just say I was at my, rope's end. And I said, you know what, this is it. Decided to try something stupid, just trying to leave some details out. Long story short, she was the one that was able to wake me up. She did some certain things, and if it wasn't for her being there and being as nosy as she is, if it wasn't for her nosiness, I wouldn't be here today, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have met, my current girlfriend at the moment. I wouldn't be in this new apartment. I wouldn't be alive at all. So I owe her, not even just from that instance, because there's been many. She's got me out of debt. She's gotten me a new car. She's worked double or triple overtime just to be able to help me pay my own bills when I couldn't, right? I owe her everything and more. That's why I will literally live the rest of my days finding ways of repaying her, whether if it's through actions or words.
What would you say you learned from them, from your dad, from him not being there, and just from your mom in general? What's your takeaway lesson from them?
It took me many years to learn how to answer that question. To start off with my dad, because it's going to be the shorter one. Not having him having that empty seat, that empty role, made me grow into more of a man. So people always were confused, like, John, how are you going to say you've become more of a man without a man in your life? That's the exact thing. I'm becoming exactly what I never had by things that happen in the outside world, right? Responsibilities, scenarios that happen at home with your significant other. It takes a real man to know how to answer certain things the right way, right? Well, no, like, I'm not going to sit here and just say a man. Obviously, it could be a male or a female. But in that role that man's supposed to play, I fit it well due to the fact that I forced myself to be this way. I learned very early how hard life can be. And this whole thing of a man, as people like to call it, right? Men can't be sensitive. Men can't be that. That's the beauty, though, of growing up with a female. You still know what a man is. You know that fine line. But when you have a female in your corner or multiple females, it's like they amplify that. They don't amplify no sensitivity. They amplify the sense of, if you want to be a person who feels, that's okay. Just because a man can't wear 2 earrings makes him, what people used to call back in it. I just grew up in a time where I'm pretty sure you would know having 2 earrings made you a certain way, or wearing a certain color made you a certain way, crying a certain way, right? I'll give you a quick example. I was like 10. I was like really chubby kid, right? Really nerdy. Went to the park, got bullied. A bunch of kids kicked me in the face, pushed me to the ground. After 20 minutes, I finally got up, went home, and I'm bleeding, and my mom's like crying and screaming, "What's wrong?" Right? So I told her what happened. She dragged me by my ear out that door. Mind you, I'm crying. I'm already in pain. We go back to the park. Now I'm just scared and embarrassed and nervous. I'm in front of the bully with my mom, and she's screaming at him. And she was like, "Let me tell you something. You're about 15, 16 years old, and my son is 10. The reason why I'm here is not to defend my son, but I can rest assure you one day when he's old enough and you're old enough and this happens again, it won't turn out the same way. Because kids like you that bully on smaller kids, it's just not right. It gets nobody anywhere. And it shows that you don't have any form of respect. So clearly your parents don't respect you, nor do they teach you it." So my mom looked at me, she goes, "You lost today." And you look at him and you say, "I lost." But that's for today, because there's always a tomorrow. So what did my mom tell me? It's not about fighting. It's not about that. It's about how you can conquer it, no matter if you're older, younger, no matter if you're bigger, smaller. So little lessons like that at a young age, at 10 years old, all I care about is playing with my Power Ranger toys. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, what? I don't care. Just want to go put on like MTV and go play with my toys. Leave me alone, right? But since an early age, since I was like 5 or 6, I can remember all her life lessons. And there was always something behind it, good or bad.
Can you tell me about your first love and how that felt?
Well, it was many, many moons ago, right? I was young. I was naive. I was a freshman when I met her. Actually, yeah. The girl that I'm with now, aka my wife, I actually met her first in middle school. now that I really think about it. We were just kids. You know, she had a crush on me. I was new to all this, right? I was always that loser kid that nobody wanted to date, the fat kid, whatever, picked last. So girls never gave me attention like that. But in seventh grade, this girl did, right? I had a mustache growing in at the time. Now I look like a hairy bear. But at one point I had a little mustache, and that's how I met her, because she wanted to cut it off with a pair of scissors. So she chased me around the school with a pair of scissors.
How'd that young love feel?
Well, I thought she was weird. I didn't know why she wanted to shave my mustache off with scissors, but it was interesting. And from there, it developed into that childish love, right? We bully each other, we play around with each other, but then it eventually started to grow. It became something different. Now when I think back, because how much I'm in love with her and how many years we've known each other, it was always that I was with somebody, she wasn't. And then I wasn't with nobody, but she was with somebody. So it always forced me to go elsewhere, where I think where my heart lay the entire time was with her. I just ended up with somebody who I assumed was my first love, because not having, it's not the fact of not having, but when you have a mother, right, and you're a mama's boy, quote unquote, and you have that constant love from a woman, you want that from a female, right? You don't want like a mother's thing, but it's like that other form of comfort. So I sought out it in somebody else when it should have been her. But as sometimes people say certain things like it wasn't the right time and things happen for a reason, I felt like that girl that I met in my freshman year that I ended up falling in love with, I'm glad that it actually happened that way. Because as you know, sometimes certain things aren't set in motion until later, because when the things fall together, it's for a reason, right? So I'm kind of glad. So to pretty much answer your question, it was the worst thing in the world. I hated her. She made my life a living hell for 3 years in high school. But yeah.
What about your first loss or heartbreak? It can be anything you would equate with a loss or a heartbreak.
I mean, the first one's going to be my grandma, to be honest with you. I've had fair shares, little things here and there. But the biggest one that killed me the most was my grandma. I was a freshman. I was 16. She lives in Brazil because my family is from Rio. And my mom had a relationship with her similar to how I have it with her. My mom bought her a house. She took care of her whole life. So in this issue now, sorry, sometimes I hate thinking about it. My mom was at work. It was like 10 o'clock at night. My aunt called me from Brazil, and she was already crying. And she goes, oh, grandma passed away. She got, forgot what it was called. Something happened with her pulmonary, like pretty much filled up her lungs with water. And she was like 80 something. The poor lady choked to death. I started bawling. I was crying like there was no tomorrow. Went to my sister. My sister was raised by my grandma, so she was just gone. What makes it harder though, but I took the responsibility of it, was my mom wasn't home yet. So imagine all your friends and family are home and it's 11 o'clock at night and you open your door and you see everybody in there just looking at you, and everyone's sad, mind you. And I'm right in front, the only one in front with the phone in my hand, looking at my mom, and she's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm sorry, but mom died, or grandma died. And for the first time, I watched my mom drop to the floor. My mom was a very strong woman her whole life and very independent. So I was used to watching that, right? So technically that day I saw two different losses. So the loss of my grandma and the loss of my mom's independence, right? That role of a strong woman, because ever since that day, and it's been almost 15 years since, I don't think my mom ever recovered the right way, right? She became a lot different since then. Not everybody's perfect. I'm not expecting my mom to go back to normal. But just like me, I changed, right? I wasn't as open and laughing and loving because me and my grandma, we actually made a promise. I was a freshman. And she was like, John, I can't wait to see you graduate. I'll stay here long enough to watch you graduate. And I asked her, it's going to be a promise then. She never made it. You know what I mean? So even when I graduated, I looked into the crowd and I was expecting to see her, but I remembered that she's not there, right? But when I looked at my mom, I was just as happy because I know that whatever you want to say, religiously, spiritually, whatever, I knew she was there somehow, right? She kept that promise as much as I kept mine.
Who would you say first taught you love and how?
once again, it'd be my mom. It's just the things that she's done for me. A lot of human beings nowadays, and now that I'm getting older and I'm realizing it, we are creatures of, like, we need love, right? People say, I love being by myself. That's true. But I bet you any amount of money, sooner or later, they'll go searching for it somewhere. Whether if it has to do with money, I don't want to use certain words, but or if they just go out just to find somewhere at a local bar. Everybody loves comfort, even the most darkest of people. So when I have a person who's by my side all the time and showed me that you always got to be the one, hey, you want some water? Hey, do you want some food? Do the dishes. It's those little things that she taught me that is what shows, right? Some people like, oh, look at that fancy Mercedes I got you outside. You love it, right? Come on. Materialistic things don't last that long, right? Everything fades, everything dies. But the one thing that won't die, to be honest with you, and I've kept it till now, is like the love of a mother. And I've learned that from her. So despite the fact that I look like a grizzly man, I actually cook dinner. I make sure that I wash my wife's clothes. You know what I'm saying? I make sure that when something needs to be done, I do it. Not because I'm the man of the house. It's my way of showing how I love somebody. And that's just something I feel like nowadays people should start doing again, to show that people just aren't, wicked in how people look at it nowadays, because it's like BLM and all the rioting that's going on, and controversies with the government, et cetera, blah blah blah, all this stupid stuff that keeps going around, but nobody like sits down and goes, well, what about the person next to me?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
What's love to you now versus to what it was compared to when you were a kid? How did those two different loves feel?
Nobody's ever asked me that question. That's pretty interesting. Well, the path that I went down as a child and the path that I'm going down today, when I was a child, it was, I had my mother's love, right? But I didn't love myself, right? I hated myself at a young age. That's not healthy. The way I am now is I still hate myself. But now I see what I have next to me, right? I now know what important things that I can't lose or let go. Hence why I am now, a supporter when it comes to suicide hotlines, right? I support now by sharing to other people my story so they don't ever go through those things. But when I was a kid, I couldn't do that, right? You're a kid. You're not even supposed to be feeling these kinds of things. Yeah. You're supposed to be worried about hanging out outside and eating pizza or whatever, right? I did have my moments where those happened. I had some great childhood memories, but I had some that a child isn't supposed to go through. You're really not. I one time was left out in the streets and I had to sleep on a blanket because the people I thought that loved me, not my mom, but a group of friends and their family, because I trusted and I loved him as a friend, left me outside to sleep in the middle of the night in 4th grade. How do you do that to a kid, right? I had to sneak back home because I was too scared to tell my mom. And those kinds of things change a person, right? So that love I had when I was a child compared to now there's a huge gap, significantly. Because at that time I had no control over the love that was around me, but now I do. And I feel like that's something we also need to realize is we have a lot more control than what we think. So by controlling the ones, that sounds terrible, controlling the ones around you, but if you control the way you act around everybody else and how you want things to be like seen, like how you want yourself to be seen, right? Or the things that you love and you want it to like sprout more than it was before, that's all up to you, right? Now there's nobody here to pull your ear. There's nobody to tell you say no. You have every right to say what you want to say and how you want to say it, right? So that's why nowadays, like compared to back in the day, it's more of an internal love now instead of an external love, I would say.
Can you tell me about a general good day for yourself? Just like, hey, today was a good day.
When those books came. When I finally actually published the book, I'm not going to lie to you, there's actually a lot of good days, so it's hard to answer that question truthfully. Like a good day was when I met my wife again, right? It was after 10 years of not seeing each other, randomly at a party, we were both there at the same time. And just looking at her just made me feel completely different, right? There's like that void I talk about that most people have. You can't fill a void, as people say, because when you fill a void, it's because you're filling it with something that's temporary. But for the first time in my life, I filled it with a seed.
Mm-hmm.
So or as Americans or people in general, we get greedy, right? We want satisfaction. But for once, I was like, you know what? Let's take some time. Planted a seed and I let it go. Now, I might still be a very depressed person. I have my mental issues, but at least one thing I don't have to worry about anymore is a person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with.
What about a bad day for you?
That's every day, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you.
How do you push through every day, man?
Sometimes I think about jumping out the window. Sometimes I think about just running around, setting myself on fire.
The drop from this window is about 7 feet.
Yeah, that's not so bad. I mean, no, I'm just kidding. I can't be saying those things. I have my fair share of bad days. You know, everybody does. You just wake up, you're cranky, you're irritated. It's coming home. I remind myself at the end of the day, I get to come home to my family, right? My mom might not be here right now, right? But she's a phone call away, right? I get to finally come home and be with the person I love being with every day. And then having my cat try to sit on my face every time we lay down. But I miss that. And that's what drives me to the end of the day, right? But before, with not having these things, my bad day never ended. My bad day was just bad. Every day was bad. And I finally learned that now it's when you have something at the end that you love truly is what's going to help you make it till the end.
What's a person or event that has shaped you, good or bad?
I mean, there's been some good events like graduating high school. I mean, to some people that's nothing. But to my mom, it was me proving something to her that I was able to do it. But a truthful, like a real good event, it's still coming. I feel like a good day is every day. It's only up to you if you want to call it a good day, right? Because if you really think about it, today could be a good day. Tomorrow can be a good day. It could be any day. But that's what I'm trying to say is the day is when I proposed to her. I think that will be my favorite day.
What's been a humbling experience for you?
A long time ago, I used to work for a restaurant, right? There's only 2 moments in my life I take a lot of, not credit for, but that sticks to me truthfully, right? That really holds my heart. I had a friend a long time ago, and he was homeless, right? So it was difficult for me because since his family rejected him because he did a lot of drugs, I still cared for him. He was my friend, right? So he was going down a bad route. He was not eating. He was letting himself go. He stopped caring, kept getting into more and more drugs. Started doing the stupid things of stealing and stuff like that. And I used to work at a pawn shop at the time. Pawn shop, I see a lot of those, right? A lot of lost kids that don't know what they're doing. So I actually ended up befriending this kid. Make a long story short, stole whatever, blah, blah, blah. He decided to go to rehab. And I told him every day, come to my store. Every single day he came. We ate lunch together, we talked. I tried to make sure that he had nothing but positive lessons before he left. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. John, kid was like 21. I'm like 20, I'm almost 30 now. I'll be 30 in October. And he's a 20-year-old kid. I remember when I was 20. 2 days goes by, he disappears, doesn't show up. I'm over here thinking, oh, he probably is now doing great, right? He doesn't need me anymore. He's straight. To find out a couple of days later, his father comes and says he passed away. He overdosed, so he relapsed. But his dad said for the first time in a long time, like that little week, he saw his son actually getting better and that he was becoming a better person. And that, I guess, attacked me a certain way because I realized that I had something to do with it. Or maybe I didn't, right? But I would assume that me telling him to come to me every day for positive, reinforcement maybe helped him, throughout that week of us being together. But unfortunately, I guess my words weren't as good as they should have been. Maybe that could have caused him not to do something. or maybe it was just completely out of my control, right? And something happened and he just did it anyways. So my lesson out of that was never stop. If you really are helping somebody, push it all the way through. Be annoying, keep calling them, because you'll be surprised. Like last summer, I lost one of my best friends to heroin. I didn't realize that those depression conversations that we had where I was trying to get him out of it, I should have been stronger for. I should have pushed it more. I should have told him, nah, come back out here. I should have been more aggressive about it. But I was just trying to be neutral. I didn't want to step on his toes. But look at where he's not. Like, he has 2 daughters here that have no father. You know what I'm saying? And that sucks. And I wish I was able to help him more. So with the friends I have now, I make sure that I'm on them 24/7. I mean, it's not my job, but if that was me, that's how I treat people. If it was me, what would I do? How would I want to be treated? So I make sure that I'm constantly annoying them at like 2, 3 in the morning, blowing up their phones and telling to me, talk to me back. Make sure that you're okay. I mean, I wouldn't go that crazy at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, but I always try to make sure, hey, text me in the morning. Let me know you're all right. Let me know how your day goes. It's just sometimes somebody needs that talk before it happens, because I've been there.
What's inspired you?
You know how like a lot of kids have like models and idols and this and that? I look back sometimes, I try to think like what inspires me, like, right? Like what kind of role models do I have? And I could think of it till this day, I really don't have any, right? I don't have anybody that's ever inspired me. I mean, obviously, despite my mom, right? But I try to be inspired by myself, right? I've done so many things up to this point that a lot of people struggle to do their whole life, right? So I've been inspired by my own self finally. Because like I said, I mentioned I hated myself in the past. So the fact that I can sit here, look at myself, and sort of be like, all right, you're not that bad, kid. You're not that bad. Right? Pull off like an Al Pacino and then walk away after a while.
Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate with the word war.
War. The biggest war I've ever had with anybody was with myself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I've struggled a lot with that. Luckily now, because I have Meniere's disease, so I have to take an antidepressant because it helps out with my anxiety. It took me almost 30 years to get on antidepressants. I was a very, very negative advocate towards it. I didn't believe in it. I let misconceptions and myths and, social acceptance. Well, now it's socially accepted, but back in the day it wasn't, right? So I was against it.
Yeah.
Now that I'm on them, it has changed my thought process dramatically. The reason why I'm talking in the future, because now that I'm going to talk in past tense, you'll realize that now I'm more calm. I don't think negatively as much. Prior to that, I promise you, if you ever even took even a glimpse into how my head works, you would have a heart attack, or you would think it's a nightmare, because the things that would go through my mind are so dark and so vivid that I scared myself half the time, right? People say, oh, I hear voices, yada, yada, yada. Some people laugh at that, right? And some people say it's true. Now, I will 100% believe anybody that says, I hear things or I see things, because the way your mind works, it's something so complex, yet we haven't even touched, we haven't scratched the surface of it yet. There's been times where I wrote an entire story. Obviously, it was like about depression and stuff like that in an hour. I had the whole story just in my head. And the details that were behind it, even my girlfriend was saying that they were so, like, I don't know, I don't want to say it the wrong way. It's just that the descriptions I gave were so, I don't want to continue with the word dark, but they were just very, very, like, in the deepest of trenches you can find, that like under like the most disgustingest mud, you would find my words. And I would beat myself, not physically, but mentally, to the point where I was able to break myself down so much that I didn't even have a personality anymore, right? I went to the extent of destroying my own character because my mind doesn't like who I am, right? Because when you're to the normal people, it's a room, right? It's their bedroom. To me, it's my own prison. I'm in a prison within a prison. I used to say that before when I was younger, and like, what does that mean? Because I'm already inside my room, which is four walls. To me, that's my prison, right? I'm stuck in a place by myself, thinking to myself. And what am I doing? I'm going into the other prison that's inside my head. Because when I'm inside my head, I'm a whole different person as well. Because now I'm attacking myself from the past. I'm attacking myself currently, and I'm already attacking myself before the future even gets to my, even in front of me. So it could be quite difficult at times, right? So war to me is something that I'm still going through. And I think I'm going to go through it the rest of my life. But this time, it's a little bit different because I have my right hand with me. So I think I'll make it to the end, hopefully.
Same type of question. Go in your mind and think this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate to the word peace.
I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I still don't know what it is. Like I've mentioned a lot in this, interview that we've been doing, there's peace within my mother. There's peace within my girlfriend, in my home, and my family, right? Externally, I know what peace is, right? I know where I can go as if it was like a hot spring. I just come in here and I just soothe away. But the reason why I'm struggling with peace is because of here, right? This big old box and big head filled with stuff, it's just, I think the day where I finally overcome my war is when I'll see my peace. So until the day comes where I can sit down and not have negative thoughts, overruling, not just negative thoughts, because everybody has them, but my negative thoughts take over to the extent where I don't have control anymore and I lose it, right? And even when I take my antidepressants, now it's just a war within a war, because now I got these medicines that are trying to stop me from feeling negative, but my mind wants to feel negative. So it's a very hard push there. There's a lot of pull, like a pull and tug going on. So let's call my war like a pull and tug more or less, right? So peace is on one end and war is on the other. And I'm in the middle just getting stretched out. And so we'll talk in like 40 years and I'll let you know what peace is.
Can you tell me about a truly difficult time in your life, how that felt and how you persevered?
There was a point in time, it was between when I was younger. There was only 2 times in my life that I just couldn't do it, right? Where I was pretty close to just saying it's too much. It was when I was a child, when I repeated the 4th grade. It was just a very, very hard time for me. My mom was working even more. I was much more alone than I was before. I didn't need a babysitter anymore because I was already 10 years old almost. So my mom just stopped getting me a babysitter. So now I was even more alone than I was before, and I didn't have any friends. I kept eating more. I just became more isolated. I became more introverted. So I was extremely depressed. And I'm pretty sure the kid at 10 years old shouldn't be that way, right? So it got only harder at that time, and I felt just very empty inside. A lot of feelings that if I felt it now, I would understand them. But as a kid, I didn't understand it, right? So even when I look back or think back, it was too much for me to even process, right? It just damaged me. That's all it did. It just made me more, what's the word I'm looking for? It made me more, it pretty much made me push people away more, it was only a negative within a negative. The second part, I was engaged to somebody several years back. We had our own place. That time was a little bit hard because certain events unfolded and there was a lot of unloyalty and cheating and lying and abusiveness. So it was kind of hard for me. I'm not going to lie to you. And I didn't have anywhere to go. Luckily enough, I even slept in my car a couple of days. Luckily enough, if my mom didn't call me, it would have turned into something very bad. It could have ended up in any way, right? We're human beings. We don't know what we have the potential of doing. We hear stories about it, right? We hear stories about people going above and beyond negatively and positively, and we're sitting there like, oh, I would never do that. Nobody can say that until you're in that position, like when someone says, well, this, and that happened to me, and I reacted this way. So until the day someone goes, until you do that, and you're in that situation, then we can talk. Because there's no way anybody can say or justify why they think it's okay or if it's not okay. The same, spiel when it comes to, well, when you walked in my shoes kind of thing, right? So that's kind of how I see it.
Can you tell me about a truly joyous moment in your life and how that felt?
You see how sad it is, how long it takes for me to even think of a joyous, like a real time filled with joy. The problem is with me, joy and happiness and, excitement, content, it's all temporary. Happiness is temporary because just like they say, it takes a lot more muscles to make a frown. It's also very complicated though to keep happiness on floating, right? So like how I view happiness was a stupid joke that me and my mom made once, because me and my mother are obviously very close. So she's an older lady, right? Obviously I have much respect for her, but she knows sometimes I could be a little pig. I was a boy. So one day I farted, right? And she looked at me and she's like, that smells disgusting. And I was like, it smells like happiness to me. I was a kid, I didn't know what I was saying. And she was like, you're right. I was like, wait, what? She was like, happiness, it's just like a fart. It comes out strong and it comes out great, but then after a while it goes away. And I looked at her, I was like, what? I was like, I'm weird. Okay. I was like 13, 14, I was like, what's wrong with you? But now as a grown man, I'm like, you know what? As weird as it sounds, it kind of makes sense though, because happiness only comes for a short amount of time, right? People say I'd rather cry in a Lamborghini than cry in a Toyota. That's true, right? I don't want that though. Like I want to have a life where I might not be happy 24/7, but I know I can enjoy my day, right? I know I can find joy throughout the day. That's how I see happiness now. If I can see it throughout the day, not at that just one time. Because if you want to feel happiness, I could take you to this comedy club over here real quick. And trust me, you'll be happy. But then the moment you step out, you're going to go right back to where you were before. And I think that's where sadness originates from. That's why it's happiness is opposite. Because they go hand in hand, unfortunately.
What keeps you up at night?
My cat. No, I'm kidding. No, he really does, though. He's the worst, but he's the best at the same time. Myself, meaning my head. There's been many nights where I've laid there, staring at my ceiling like if it was going to change. Because I'm over here, snowballing thoughts, creating scenarios in my head that don't ever make sense or were never created. Those what-if scenarios. It's like daydreaming while you're showering, except you're laying down. And you're just by yourself even more now, right? And you're just stuck. You're just stuck.
What keeps you going every day?
Now, it'll be my girlfriend and my cat, to be honest. Obviously, we actually have, we just adopted a dog. He's actually coming from Texas. We rescued him, so he'll be a nice addition to our family. And hopefully one day, if you ever pass by again, I'm going to have a big portrait of us all in turtleneck sweaters in front of a fireplace. It's going to be good.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
Not saying I love you enough. I do have a problem where, because there was a certain time in my life where it was mostly throughout high school. I became a little bit different. I was a lot more serious because people were mean. It's high school, right? So I was still kind of fat going into high school, and then I leaned down a lot, right? I had sports and all that. So I became a lot more conservative, right, with my feelings and my words. If you read the stuff I write, you'd be like, oh, you should have no problem talking. It's a lot easier to look at a piece of paper than to look at you straight in the face and tell you how I feel. Nowadays, I don't have a problem with that. But during that time, it was a little bit more difficult because I would show you I love you, not say I love you, right? Instead of like, oh, you didn't move your car, I'll move it for you. But I wouldn't say I love you for some reason, right? It's not because I didn't want to. It was just I felt like the little things and my actions prove it more than just saying 3 lousy words. But to some people, those 3 lousy words might mean the world and more. So now I try to say it more often, right? Every time I'm on the phone with my mom, I'll be like, I love you. You know, I'll say it 2 or 3 times if I have to. I always say it to my girlfriend. Even if we're fighting, I'll make sure I say it. She thinks I'm you know what? She thinks I'm being sarcastic, but I'm actually telling her, no, it's because you don't know if I walk through that door and we're still fighting, I didn't say I love you, I can get killed. You don't even know, nobody knows, right? You could fall and crack and hit your head. People have died over some similar, like smaller things, right? So it's like, if I was laying there in my hospital bed, I would beat myself up until the day that machine just goes, meh. I'm like, well, maybe I can write I love you on my heart rate monitor, and they'll get it then.
So you're going to make it, you're alive and well. Do you feel you can change that regret moving forward?
I'm actually in the process of it. So I've become less narcissistic because when you grow up in that lifestyle of being alone, you tend to just be with you in your own head, right? I went to the point where, like I said, I was becoming a lot more closed off, and then I went down a route of self-absorption, right? I became a bodybuilder for almost 10 years. That journey of becoming a bodybuilder went less of me becoming who I am and showing the love to those who deserve it to just being a person of I want it all for me, right? I was very not confident. I was a very cocky person, right? Instead of being responsible, I was very irresponsible with not things or like work, stuff like that. I was actually responsible with people's feelings because I cared more about myself because I was too scared of everyone else, right? I've met people, I've hurt people. I'm not perfect, right? I'm a person who truly believes if a person who's actually changed is somebody who can sit here and stare at you in the face and say, I've done A, B, and C, but I'm no longer like that because I've learned, right? I believe in being a person where I hate when people point the finger, right? Because nobody can point it right back at you. Because people forget that, right? You have a pointer finger, but you can also do this. You can point at yourself, right? I do that now. When I know I'm wrong, I say I am wrong, right? So that's why I feel like by me continuing the way I'm going, I'll be able to succeed at the end of what I'm chasing for. And that's just to be a better me, right? Whether if I look like a roly polioli or if I look like Ryan Reynolds, it's one or the other. But right now it looks like I'm got a little tummy going on. That's a different story.
You told me that you didn't really have dreams as a child. What are your dreams now as an adult?
They're kind of boring. Like I want to get a good job, that kind of stuff. I was expecting to be something cool by now, like maybe like an artist, something famous, but it's not happening yet. I'm very upset. I thought with my last name I'd become famous. My dreams now are pretty much, I think, what every average adult would want, right? Have a good job. I'm trying to get my CDL. I'm trying to see, like the book thing, I really don't care if it gets anywhere. It's not meant for the fame. It's meant for me. When people say when you help out at least one person, you've made a difference in the world, that's what it is, right? Everything that I do, I want it to help people see, whether for them to write a book, right? Or for them to write a song, or for them to do this, or anything. I believed in leadership my whole life because I never had it, right? I always wanted to guide people the right way. What job could that be someday? I don't know. I'm kind of just going with everything now because I've always forced myself growing as I was getting older. I have to try to do this, I have to try to do that, I have to try to do this. So at one point I was just like, why not just take a step back, relax real quick. I even quit my job. I just put in my 2 weeks and I don't have a job. I have an apartment. I have bills to pay. I should be freaking out right now. But for once, I want to sit here and just be like, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to wake up to that I'm not going to be upset and I'm not going to come home screaming or crying in my car? You know what I mean? So it's like, whether if it goes down the route of becoming famous and have millions of dollars, awesome. If it just goes where I'm going to have a simple job and have a simple life, but as long as I have her my cat and my dog and my mom, maybe one day some kids,
Yeah.
I want to be happier.
You're the author of your life book. What's your picture perfect ending?
Lots of money. No. Happiness. That real happiness, though. Not the baby fart happiness, but very long and stretched out one. Meaning my mom's taken care of, my sister's taken care of, my friends are in the right route in life. I have my life set straight. It's not just, see, it's like, I don't want to just succeed. I want everybody to succeed, right? I want my friends, my family. I want us all to be okay in the end. That's why, like, I make a joke all the time. My friends can tell you, if I ever won the lottery, I would run away and not give money to anybody ever. If that was the case, my money would be dispersed through all my friends, even the ones that even did me dirty, because I still want to see people make it in the end, right? Because at the end of the day, I might be the one at the top, but what am I going to do? Just look at everybody at the bottom? It doesn't look so. One thing I remember learning from my mom, when you look down at the valley, it's not always its best. But when you're in the valley looking up, it always looks great. Because when you're down in the dumps, when you're rich, you don't look down. But when you're poor, you look up. So why not be able to all be up top and look down and be like, look at where we came from, but this is where we are now. But then again, people are just too selfish. So who knows? We'll see. Find out how that goes.
That's it.
Awesome.